Hi, I'm Lily Chen, and this is the story of how I learned that sometimes the people closest to you understand you the least. For 15 years, I built a tech company from my garage, but to my family, that wasn't enough. In the Chen family, education was everything. My older brother, Daniel, was the golden child, perfect grades, perfect SAT scores, and a scholarship to Harvard Business School. I was different. Numbers made sense to me in a way textbooks never did. While Daniel studied for exams, I was taking apart computers, learning to code, and dreaming of creating something big. Lily, you're wasting your talent, Mom would say, sighing as I worked in the garage instead of applying to colleges. Look at your brother, already preparing for his MBA, and you're just playing with computers. That playing turned into Novatech, now worth $100 million. But let's go back to the beginning. 15 years ago, while Daniel was starting Harvard, I dropped out of community college. When I told my parents, it was like I had committed a crime. Dad, a professor at Stanford, couldn't even look at me. Mom cried for weeks. Daniel, home for spring break, smirked. Well, someone has to be the family disappointment, he said, adjusting his Harvard sweater. When I'm running a Fortune 500 company, maybe I'll hire you to sort mail. That night, in my small garage, surrounded by wires and circuits, I made a promise to myself I would succeed my way. The first few years were tough. While Daniel posted pictures from fancy MBA events, I was sleeping on a futon in my tiny office, living on ramen and coffee, but I had something he didn't see, an idea. Big companies were selling expensive cybersecurity, leaving small businesses unprotected. I built SafeShield, a simple, affordable security tool for them. The first version was rough, but it worked. Word spread. One small business turned into 10, then 100. By year 3, we landed $1 million contract. Did my family notice? Sort of, but not in the way I hoped. Cute little business, Lily, Daniel said at Thanksgiving, but you should really get a degree. You can't run a real company without credentials. Mom nodded. It's not too late to go back to school. Honey, Daniel could help you apply. I just smiled. Let them think what they wanted. I was too busy growing my company. The years flew by. Novatech expanded worldwide, launching new products, acquiring startups, and becoming a leader in small business cybersecurity. Our clients even included some Fortune 500 companies. Funny, considering Daniel's old joke. Meanwhile, Daniel was climbing the corporate ladder, making partner at a top consulting firm. Every family gathering became a highlight reel of his success. Daniel just closed a $15 million deal. Daniel was featured in Business Weekly. Daniel's living in a luxury apartment at Harvard. And my success? It was always downplayed. Lily's company is doing well, considering she's a dropout. Considering she has no business degree. Considering she's not Daniel. Then last week, Daniel had a promotion party. He was named CEO of his consulting firm's tech division, and Mom and Dad threw a huge celebration at the Ritz-Carlton. Silicon Valley's biggest names were there, including my own clients. Not that my parents noticed. I arrived early, wearing a simple black dress that Mom immediately criticized. Couldn't you dress up a little more? This is an important night for your brother. The evening went as expected, a flood of speeches, praising Daniel's brilliance and success. Then, he raised his glass for a big announcement. Thank you all for coming, he said, flashing his perfect smile. As many of you know, I've just been named CEO of our technology division, but that's not the only exciting news. He paused for effect, locking eyes with me across the room. I'm excited to announce that we'll be expanding into small business cybersecurity, Daniel said, flashing a confident smile. Then he turned to me. In fact, he continued, our first step will be acquiring my sister's little company. It's time for Novatech to have real, qualified leadership. The room went silent. I froze as Daniel kept talking. Let's be honest, in today's market, proper credentials matter. Lily has done well enough, considering her limitations, but now, it's time for professionals to take over. He turned directly to me. Lily, as your brother, I'm giving you a chance to exit gracefully. Let the experts handle things, before your lack of education ruins what you've built. I looked at Dad, he was beaming with pride. Mom was already whispering to her friends about how great it would be to have both kids working together. The room waited for my response. Daniel's smirk told me he expected me to finally admit he was right. Instead, I stood up, smoothed my inadequate dress, and walked to the podium. Thank you for the interesting offer, Daniel, I said calmly. I'll have my response ready first thing tomorrow morning. Then, I walked out. In my car, I grabbed my phone and started typing emails. It was going to be a long night. By morning, they would see exactly what a dropout could do. Tomorrow would change everything. The next morning, I arrived at Novatech headquarters at 6 a.m. The office was quiet as I walked through the sleek hallways, everything I had built while my family doubted me. At 9 a.m., sharp, the elevator doors opened. Daniel walked in, followed by Dad and 2 lawyers. His confident smile faded slightly when he saw me already seated in the conference room. "Lily," he said, adjusting his expensive tie, "glad you're here. These are our attorneys. They've prepared the acquisition paperwork. I think you'll find our offer very generous, considering my limitations." I finished for him, smiling. "Please, sit down. I have some documents to share as well." Daniel grabbed what he assumed were my resignation papers. Instead, I opened my laptop and projected a file onto the big screen. "Before we discuss your offer, here's something you should know about my little company." I pulled up the first slide. "This is Novatech's latest valuation, $100 million, verified by 3 independent firms last month." Daniel's smirk disappeared. "That's impossible. Our research." "Your research," I interrupted, "was based on incomplete public records. While you were collecting degrees, I was collecting patents. Novatech owns over 200 cybersecurity patents. What you tried to acquire, that's just the surface." I clicked to the next slide. "These are our client lists. Recognize any names?" Dad leaned forward, adjusting his glasses. His face paled. Among the names was Daniel's own consulting firm. "That's right," I continued. "Your company's cybersecurity infrastructure runs on our systems, has for years." I pulled up another document. "That $50 million deal you just closed? The client only chose your firm because you promised them Novatech's security suite." Daniel's face turned pale. But that's impossible. I would have known." "Would you?" I asked. "Or did you just assume that nothing I did could be important?" The lawyers frantically flipped through their papers, realizing their mistake. I wasn't done. And now, the most interesting part. I displayed the final document and slid folders across the table. "Remember that graceful exit you offered me? I have a counterproposal." Daniel ripped open the folder. His hand shook as he read the contents. "Novatech just acquired your firm's entire tech division. The board approved it last night, unanimously. They were particularly impressed with our new quantum encryption technology, something your due diligence missed." Daniel's mouth opened, then closed. "The board would never." "The board," I interrupted, "is mostly made up of Novatech's clients." Silence. I leaned back in my chair, watching realization dawn on his face. "Looks like the dropout just bought out the Harvard grad." I smiled and asked, "You mean the same board that depends on our security systems to protect billions of dollars? That board?" Dad stared at me like he was seeing me for the first time. One of the lawyers quickly pulled out his phone, probably checking if what I said was true. "So, here's how this is going to go," I said, keeping my voice calm. "You have 2 choices, Daniel." His confidence finally wavered. "Option 1?" he asked quietly. "Option 1, you step down from the tech division immediately. You'll get a generous severance package and a great recommendation for any job outside the tech industry." Daniel swallowed hard. "And option 2? "Option 2, I release proof that your division has been taking credit for Novatech's work for years. I'm sure business magazines would love that story. Ivy League CEO exposed for using sister's work as his own." The room went silent. Outside the glass walls, employees had started arriving. Some of them glanced curiously at the tense meeting inside. "You wouldn't," Daniel said, but his voice lacked confidence. "We're family." I laughed softly. "Last night, you called me unqualified, inadequate, and limited. You tried to steal my company in front of everyone. That's not family, Daniel. That's just bad business." Dad finally spoke. "Lily, can't we talk about this? Your brother didn't mean." "He meant every word." I cut him off. "Just like you meant it every time you called my work tinkering. Just like Mom meant it every time she said my success was just luck." I stood up and smoothed my dress, the same one Mom had criticized last night. "The acquisition is final. A press release goes out in an hour. So what's it going to be, Daniel? Quiet retirement or public scandal?" 20 minutes later, I watched from my office window as Daniel stormed out of the building, Dad hurrying after him. The lawyer stayed behind to finalize his resignation. That evening, Mom called. crying that I had ruined Daniel's career. I let it go to voicemail. Instead, I focused on a new email I had just received. Harvard Business School wanted me to give their graduation speech next spring. The topic? Success beyond traditional paths. I smiled and accepted. I already knew exactly what I would say. The next year brought changes no one expected. Novatech tripled in value after we went public. Daniel found a job in real estate, far away from tech. Dad retired, finally realizing that fancy degrees don't always mean real skill. We still see each other at family holidays, but things are different now. There are invisible walls between us, wounds that might never fully heal. Sometimes, late at night, I look at old family photos and feel a small pang of sadness for what we lost, but then I remember Daniel's smirk, Dad's dismissive tone, Mom's constant doubts. And I remind myself, respect isn't given because of a degree, it's earned. These days, when I walk into tech conferences, I hear whispers. That's Lily Park, the dropout who. They never finish the sentence. They don't need to. My success speaks for itself. Just last week, I got an invitation to speak at Daniel's old company's annual retreat. The topic? Recognizing innovation, looking beyond traditional metrics. I accepted with a smile. As I write this from my office overlooking the city, I remember something my first mentor told me. Success isn't about proving others wrong, it's about proving yourself right. She was right. But sometimes, just sometimes, doing both feels pretty good. Novatech keeps growing, breaking new ground, and leading the industry, but more importantly, I've found peace with my journey. Because in the end, the best revenge isn't about tearing others down. It's about soaring so high that they have no choice but to see their own limitations. After all, not all dropouts are the same. And not all success stories follow the usual path. Some of the greatest achievements come from those who dare to write their own rules. And as for Daniel's Harvard MBA? It looks great on his wall. Right next to the real estate license he had to get, after trying to steal the wrong company from the wrong, unqualified sister.